Hello everyone. Welcome to Outlook Poshan Suposhin Bharat campaign. Our topic of discussion today is good food. COVID-19 has not only sensitized us to our environment and our communities, but also highlighted the importance of good health. And food, good food, nutritious food is needed for growth and development. It acts as an immunity booster, it lowers the risk of disease, and it makes us more productive. We have six experts with us today who will be touching upon different aspects of health and nutrition and highlighting the need for good food. Our panelists comprise Dr. Usha Kiran Sisodia, Head of Department Diet and Nutrition, Nanavati Max Super Speciality Hospital, Dr. Gyandev Bhatt, Vice President, Head Formulations Research and Development, ACG and Vantage Nutrition, Tiana Rodrigues, nutritionist at Vantage Nutrition, Mr. Anurag Chadda, Managing Director and Country Manager at Christian Hansen, Chef Kunal Kapoor, Mr. Deepak Arora, Vice President Public Affairs at Naira Energy. Welcome all of you and thank you for being a part of this conversation. Dr. Sisodia, we would like to start with you. You experienced everything firsthand in the healthcare industry, being part of a very super specialty hospital. Could you guide us that how has the diet been changed for healthcare workers and patients at this time? Because none of us are aware how the healthcare workers are coping up with what kind of food they need because they're putting in long hours and strenuous work they're doing.
Yeah. So basically, when first we came to know about the COVID situation and our hospital declared that we will be dealing with all the corona patients. So I had developed a menu for them, keeping in mind the respiratory like lungs function should get not affected. So in that case, I have introduced in the breakfast more of protein rich, and along with the protein rich, the low carbohydrate diet means like less of sugar and less of this thing, simple carbs. Because generally simple carbs, they increase the workload of the lungs. So what that I kept in mind, and I have introduced all the functional food rich food like sesame laddus. I have introduced we have introduced paneer recipes and more of leafy vegetables. And then for the staff, in between snacks like roasted chana or any roasted snacks that without oil. So because we have to take care there, because they were the patient, they were the taking patient from one ward to other ward, they were shifting them, they were dealing with all the time wearing PP kit. So I really have to hydrate also them very well. So we have in between also we have introduced this fresh juice, coconut water, lime juices, and even for the throat we have introduced like the kada, simple kada, like warm water with the haldi and this dried ginger powder. And even we have introduced this turmeric milk at the bedtime.
So there have been different patients of all age groups. How did you cope with that? How did you start changing the menu for them? And the pressure was so high, the strain on the healthcare industry has been very high.
Yeah. So for the patient, it always depends on the clinical symptoms. So when the patient was getting admitted, each and every patient we were assessing by phone call, because that time we have to maintain the social distancing and keeping in mind that we should not get affected. So that's why means we have every patient was made a call, and then on the call we used to ask them their likes, dislikes, the allergies, if they have lost their appetite, if they don't have taste, they have nauseating feeling or any other like GI symptoms, maybe means like a constipation, acidity. So keeping in mind, we have given a light food, easy to digest, like in the morning breakfast, try to give them oats. Then with the oats we can make simple variation like simple idli or simple poha upma preparation. And in the lunch and dinner, like more of khichdi kind of thing, rice pulse combination, and less of oil, less of spices, because they were not having any appetite. Many patients, those like kids, we had first patient that was 6-year-old kid only, and to her we have tried to give like simple sandwiches, simple rice and dal preparation, and some fruits, because many patients, they are are comfortable only with the fruits. So we were giving fruits and more of probiotic food also, like curds. And many were having myth ki we should not eat curds in the night. So then we were not giving them, keeping in mind their point of view. We were not giving curd in the bedtime, but in the lunch we were serving curds too. So that way we were making changes as per the individual patient.
Dr. Bhatt, I would like to ask you that, you know, a lot of us have been hearing about multivitamins being the cure and, you know, boosting our immune system so that we don't land up in a situation where we have to rush to the hospital. And Vantage being a company which is heavy on formulations. And if you could just guide us through how useful are these multivitamins?
Okay. See, multivitamins and minerals are very essential for any individuals. And most of that time it comes from our diet and whatever we eat. But then nowadays what has happened is, this pandemic has created havoc in everyone. So now, everybody's scenario is such that everybody is rushing for multivitamin supplements. Uh, you know, uh, Something like multivitamins with a B complex, vitamin C, zinc, all these are the one which people are now rushing for. But then it is good because these are the ones which, supplements the body's need if it is not coming from our, regular diets. Because some point of time, everyone has got different diet systems and their food habits. So it happens that we may or may not get the right vitamin from our, daily food. So it is essential that we have to go for, the ready multivitamins and vitamin C products, especially vitamin D3, zinc. So these are the ones which usually comes deficiency because of our food habits. So, having said that, it is safe to use. There is no harm in using these multivitamins which are readily available, because this has been actually curated based on the RDA limits which individual country has got. And when we talk about India, India has got specified some RDA limits, and most of the products which have been marketed complies to these RDA limits. Even from the Vantage Nutrition, we look at the RDA limits and then curate the product having the label claim which complies the RDA limits, so that anybody who goes and picks up this product from the market without prescription will not be harmful to them. And moreover, what happens is sometimes, these are not harmful, these are not drugs, these are ultimately, dietary supplements. So taking little more from the what is needed may not be so harmful, because, we know that even if we take some ready-made, product, multivitamin product from market, our diet also contributes some amount of multivitamins and minerals, and that is obvious that it will come from diet as well. So it's not that harmful, and I think, and in short, I mean, if I have to tell you about this, yes, these are the essential things, and considering the current scenario, it is very essential that we supplement this either from the marketed products which are readily available, or with our own diet system, building all these things as Dr. Sisodia was talking about, incorporating probiotics and foods which has got more essential nutrients, micronutrients, and fruits which is contributing to natural vitamin C, etc.
So people have been picking up these multivitamins from drugstores because they don't need a prescription. Is it okay to take them for a month without prescriptions, or should we get a doctor involved in it?
See, in Indian scenario, actually there are two types of products which are being marketed. One is purely comes under the pharmaceutical license, and the other one usually comes with a dietary supplements market, that is under the FSSAI. So if I have to answer, all the FSSAI products or FSSAI label products, these are very safe because this has been designed in such a way that it has brought under the RDA limits of the individuals and then marketed as per that. So, that is a strict regulatory guidances, and everyone adheres to these guidances when it comes under FSSAI. Similarly, the one which is coming under the pharmaceutical, which typically comes as a drug, where we can definitely identify this as a pharmaceutical product, because the food supplements and the multivitamins marketed under the FSSAI category, either it has to have green dot or red dot, depending upon the vegetarian source or non-vegetarian source, whereas pharmaceutical products do not require to have this. So we can definitely identify either from the what we call the way it has been packed, because dietary supplements usually comes with a bottle pack, and pharmaceutical product comes with the strips and blister. So the one which is coming under the pharmaceutical usually have higher amount of multivitamins and all minerals, because that has been given for treatment, more of a treatment rather than the preventive. So such kind of products has to be under the prescription of the doctor. But otherwise, all the products which are available as a FSSAI products, definitely people can pick it up from the market and use it.
So, Tiana, I would like to know from you that there are people who don't have access to these supplements, or because they get short in the market now since everybody's rushing for them. And there's a lot of narrowness in our movement because we move only within certain limits now. So what kind of local and seasonal foods do you recommend that we look at? Also, another important thing that I've noticed is when people buy their veggies and fruits from the market, they tend to wash it with vinegar. Some even are washing with Dettol and water. What is the correct way to get them home, to wash them and store them?
Thank you, Ambika, for your question. And thank you, Mr. Bhatt, for already setting the premise for me to explain and elaborate more on this. So like Sir already said, the Indian Council of Medical Research establishes an RDA, a recommended dietary allowance, which is approved by FSSAI. Now, what is that? It is for you and me. A healthy person can have this much on a daily basis to prevent falling sick. So that's your recommended dietary allowance. Now, when I say that, for something like vitamin C, as per the 2010 RDA, it is just 40 mg. And as per the latest guidelines, it's gone up to 80 mg. Now, this I can easily achieve from my kitchen. If I have, say, around 7 to 8 amlas, if I have 2 oranges, 4 limes in the day. But the problem is, how many of us have these things every single day and meet it through our diet? That is the question. So vitamin C, yes, you can get it from your diet. Zinc through nuts, through your dairy products, through your green leafy vegetables, pulses, magnesium too from the same sources. But now when I look at vitamin D, there are very limited sources of vitamin D. It will be an egg yolk. Going out in the sun, people have a myth that it will give them enough of vitamin D, but there's a big question mark on it. It depends on your skin color. It depends on so many other factors that is actually involved into converting vitamin D to its active form. So with supplements for vitamin D is best suited. You might not be able to meet it just through your diet. So if I had to break this down for you, there are certain foods, food or vitamins or minerals which you can get through your diet, like vitamin C, zinc. Yes, you can meet magnesium, iron. Iron, you make it more bioavailable from your foods by germinating pulses, adding lime just before you have it so that vitamin C helps in the iron absorption. These are techniques you improve the bioavailability of nutrients from food. But then there is this category, which is your vitamin D, which is your omega-3, which are also very, very important for your overall good health and fighting inflammation. In an Indian diet, typically, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is highly skewed, and it's almost impossible. I think Dr. Sisodia will agree with me. It's almost impossible through diet to meet an omega-3 requirement. So in that case, yes, for fat-soluble vitamins, you do need a supplement. But you should not go overboard on them because they are stored in the body. Water soluble vitamins like B complex, etc. Even if you're a vegetarian deficient, not having enough of dairy or meat products and hence not meeting your requirements, you can take in supplements. The dangers or the adverse effects of taking too many of them is not so much seen because they're water soluble and they get flushed out if you're having sufficient water. Coming back to the next part of your question, which is how do we take care of the hygiene? Vinegar and other forms, they have been used since a lot of time, mostly for fermentation, preservation, making pickles and all these things. Definitely it helps if you like the taste of it. But in terms of scientific evidence on this matter, vinegar only helps with certain forms of pathogens. So an E. coli, a salmonella, it helps prevent these infections. It's not going to help you from a virus, a coronavirus. So what you really need to do for your fruits and vegetables is get them and wash them really well. Don't fuss too much about using soap and detergent. Why? Because your vegetables and fruits are porous in nature and you don't want that soap going inside your fruit or vegetable, right? So you don't, and once it's in, it's going to cause nausea, stomach upset, and various other symptoms that will tell you, hey, look, it's not good. So I would suggest, most importantly, practice personal hygiene. Wash your hands very well before cutting fruits and vegetables. Wash your fruits and vegetables, green leafy vegetables or a cauliflower, blanch them, put them in hot water and then cold water. And very importantly, after washing them, use a clean board. If you've used a board to separate them out, spread them out, then again wash that out, use it to chop, etc. While chopping, for fruits and vegetables that have a peel, make sure you don't use the knife to cut right through the peel to the inside, because then you're putting the germs, which are probably on the outside, still inside. So make sure you de-peel them, remove the peels first, and then consume or cut the fruit or the vegetables separately. Most vegetables, I wouldn't be concerned because they are cooked, and cooked foods do not have a chance of spreading that much of infection. But whenever you are consuming something raw, try steaming it. Salads and all, well and good. Avoid it from outside. Have it at home. Steam it a little. Most importantly, if you want, or if you are prone to infections or you have a low immunity, I would suggest stick to fruits that have a thick peel outside, like an orange, a pomegranate, where you can remove the peel and have the fruit from inside rather than scrubbing it with soap. So those would be my takeaways for you.
Okay, another thing we find is that in the local shops, we tend to have open spices in open bags.
Yes.
So what if people are buying spices from open bags? How they should store them once they bring them home?
All right. So spices have, and we use them for their aroma and flavor, and that's going to go significantly if they're kept open. So in a container that is opaque, not exposed to too much light or moisture, it would definitely help preserve them. Again, there are mixed reports whether the virus really spreads through any form of packaged foods or food in general, because it's more believed to be spreading by human contact. So in this case, what I would suggest is when you bring it home, at least, yes, what happens outside you are not aware of, but when you bring it home, preserve it in an opaque container away from light, away from direct moisture or too much heat, and use them in cooking methods to enhance flavors. Don't use them raw. That would be another precautionary measure.
Mr. Chadha, Dr. Sisodia mentioned that they were giving probiotics to COVID patients in the hospital. Would you please explain probiotics to a layperson, because a lot of the people don't understand the real significance of probiotics?
Thanks, Ambika. Thanks for asking the question, and thanks for inviting Christian Hansen on the program of Outlook. Probiotics are nothing but live bacteria which are part of the human microbiome, and they can give a lot of health benefits for the individual, for the human beings. So the FDA definition of the probiotics goes as these: they are live microorganisms. When they are administered in an adequate quantity in the humans, then they can give some health benefits. Usually these health benefits are in the areas of immunity and also the digestive health. Now, I think the bigger question is that what is human microbiome? And the interesting part is that the human body it's comprising of 47% of the human cells and 53% of the bacterial cells. And there are some 5,000 species which are there in the human body. 97% of them are part of the GI tract, the gut primarily. And there are certain strains which have been identified, and if they are consumed on a regular basis for a little prolonged period of time, then these strains can start giving health benefits in the individuals. And those strains are identified as probiotics primarily. These strains generally come from two large species of bacteria. One is Bifidobacterium and another is Lactobacilli. So that's how I would like to put it in the most simplistic term of probiotics.
So which products are easily available now? Because in the lockdown, a lot of things have got disrupted. So which products are easily available and which can be consumed on a long term, as you mentioned? And long term means how long term? 3 months, 6 months without any problems?
Yeah. So I think I'll take your second question first. How long can you consume probiotics? You can actually consume probiotics lifelong. The human microbiome, it develops through the life stages of an individual, from an infant, young children to an adult and to an elderly. It is already developing, and if you are able to build it properly and give it more boost, then it is the best thing. So they can be consumed lifelong without any problem. However, I think the cautious thing is to get the right benefits from the probiotics, you have to consume it regularly. If you start taking breaks, then it does not give you the health benefits what you are aspiring for. The products which are available today in the market, they are more in the field of dairy. You've got yogurts, you've got drinking yogurts, you've got buttermilk, you've got chas, which are coming up with which are actually infusing the probiotics into their products. It doesn't affect the taste at all. It just enhances the health aspect of the product. These are available in the market. A lot of companies are putting it, and the individuals can consume it very regularly.
So, chef, we finally get all the food nutrients and we bring it to the kitchen. So, what is the best way to cook so that none of the nutrients get lost? And now that we are seeing so many people in quarantine and they're not able to kind of do the kind of food that they would be doing on a normal routine basis, what kind of meals do you suggest for them?
Okay, clearly there are two questions. So the first one is, what is the best way of cooking? I think it's difficult to kind of define what is the best way of cooking because it may not give you the desired results every time. So, one way to simply put it is steaming food is the best way, but is it desirable? Is it sustainable? No. So because and plus you cannot steam every food and eat it. It's impossible. Nobody is going to follow that diet. So I think the best way of cooking any dish in a layman's term, if I have to put, is to be conscious of what you are putting, what you are adding, and more or less we have uh, a certain level of knowledge. Everybody knows what is good and what is bad. You don't need to be a doctor to understand that if you eat fried food all the time, or if you're eating charred food or grilled food all the time, that is going to be healthy for you. So there is a certain basic knowledge and understanding we all possess. When we put that butter on the bread, or when we add that extra dollop of cream on your favorite palak paneer, or when we order that extra cheese pizza, we already know that we are eating, let's say in this particular three cases, excess fat. Similarly, there could be excess carbs, there could be excessive eating. So method of cooking is not the culprit, I always say. And also, we have this tendency as individuals, not as doctors, but as individuals, to define food as healthy and unhealthy. I personally feel that there is no such food which is unhealthy at all. It is our intake, it is our lifestyle that makes it unhealthy for us. So where if I am used to working out, or if I'm a very active person, I can take enough of, let's say, for example, ghee. I'm keeping other parameters as uh, okay, where I don't have a certain condition or I'm not allergic to certain things. So it is not unhealthy for me because I'm able to burn it out. But at the same time, if I'm sedentary and if I'm somebody who is unable to move around, whether it's for old age or some incapacity, I need to reduce my certain foods. That's all. So no food is unhealthy. Every food gives you nutrition. The art of balancing nutrition from every meal, every ingredient is uh, what we need to focus. And that's where we learn, not necessarily from chefs, but from nutritionists, from doctors who kind of recommend certain things to eat and in proportion. And like I said, everybody has a basic knowledge of what is right and what is wrong. And when you get interested about such things, the information is right there, right? Somebody who's listening to or watching us now, there's a whole lot of information that from Dr. Sisodia to Mr. Chadda to Tiana, everybody has already shared. So it's all about implementing, keeping that, and moving on. Now, talking about certain foods that uh, that one can have while they are on, let's say, a certain recovery, whether it's from COVID or not. And also personally, let's say if somebody is trying to rebuild, whether he was suffering from COVID or not, or kind of getting onto a recovery road, I think there are certain parameters from what I understand as a chef. I can share. One is definitely proteins, because those are your building blocks in your body. So whether it's a plant-based based protein or if it's a animal-based protein, that is important. Then it comes to fats. Fats are very important, but uh, the good fats. Let's say if you're taking fats in terms of eating almonds or eating different kinds of nuts, so this is a good source of fat. Similarly, there are certain healthy oils as well. So you cannot have a fat-free diet. It's not good for our own body. Similarly, limiting your carbs or taking carbs in the form of carbs coming from, let's say, a whole wheat or a whole meal or a mixed grain meal rather than a very super refined flour, for example. So there are these subtle things. At the same time, somebody who's recovering, I think fresh food, freshly prepared, helps a lot. When I say fresh food, it should be seasonally available fresh fruits and vegetables, something that you can eat raw, something which requires minimalistic cooking. For example, if you want to eat chaat, right? So you can always add a whole lot of sprouts to your chaat to make it more healthy. Like someone was talking that the moment you sprout a dal, you are increasing the iron absorption or the iron or the nutrients. जब वो sprout बनता है, it kind of increases. In fact, sometime back, 2-3 years back, I had this entire craze about doing micro um, these small little micros that you can grow from seeds, different seeds at home. All you need is a little small bowl, and with a cotton pad, add some water, add some, let's say, throw in mustard seeds, and you get those small little shoots, and you cut them and you eat them, and they don't taste much. They're not a mouthful, but they're very nutritious. So these are the few things that I can put forward. And I mean, the list is endless. There is so many other things that you can kind of uh, uh, eat while you're on the road to recovery. And one of the important things is that to not overindulge, because the moment you are into that recovery mode, you start feeling hungry. You tend to go back to the same old habits. Hey, yaar, ab to main patla ho gaya. Ab to theek hai. I need nutrition, Baba. That theory and that thought in the head, you really have to fight it and kind of pace out your meals. Uh, I've I've been somebody on to a very high side of weight and kind of reduced it over a period of time. I've realized one of the things that works for me is portioning, at the same time having a right time to eat. So I try and limit my dinners. There are handful of days that I actually indulge in a nice good meal, and then go off to bed. Otherwise, I usually try and finish my a light meal by 7:30. So that has really helped me. Somebody who asked me, how did you do it, what are you eating, what is your diet plan? I said, you know what, I've just had like liquid dinner, literally maybe a glass of milk or a fruit or maybe a small bun, but the rest of the day I've been eating. So that really helps. And again, it's very uh, dependent upon body to body, type to type, and that's where doctors and nutritionists come into play, who give you a certain, who identify you as a body type and then kind of suggest you or recommend you a certain diet to follow. And that's where the chefs come in to make sure that it's nutritious. At the same time, it's tasty.
So, Chef, a few years back, there was an event at the New Zealand Embassy, and you had made a very tasty litti choka with avocado. I wonder if you remember that. So, could you share with us something as tasty and as quick to make? Maybe not an avocado, but a more easily available ingredient that we could all put together in a jiffy and feel good about it.
There are quite a bit, in fact. And we don't have to really stretch ourselves too far. I think local berries are fabulous. They're full of antioxidants. They're small. They don't fill you up as much, but yet they give you a whole lot of nutritional benefit. So, every state, and I've been doing a bit of research. I'm trying to put a book together on different local ingredients. So I've been researching that every state has a certain berry that comes in a certain season. For example, I'm in Delhi right now. Delhi UP belt has this falsa that comes in, and I was just reading about it, that it is high on, now it's all Google information, so I can't vouch for it, but that's what it says. And somebody who over here, if you can kind of enlighten, it'll be great. But it is full of vitamin C. It is full of antioxidants. It's a small berry. It is, you can just keep snacking on it. So rather than replacing your trying to go on a crash diet, replace your butter popcorns while you're watching your Amazon or Netflix with a healthier berry. Similarly, if you go towards the northern Indian belt, abhi mil rahi Kilmora. Kilmora is a tiny little yellow colored raspberry, which is very, very indigenous to this entire belt. And it's a brilliant, very tasty, very elusive. If you're in somebody who's staying in the hills, you really don't have to make an effort, because bazaar mein nahi milti, aapke ghar ke bahar ya kahin road pe wo ped laga hoga, tod ke sab kha rahe hote. So I think a simple thing like going out and researching which fruit belongs to which season and pick that up as a snack is one of the wonderful things. I think another thing which is really coming up is chia seeds. Now, chia seeds is simple seeds which are basically they belong to the same as the mint family. Though they have don't taste like mint, they actually taste like nothing because it doesn't have any taste. It's more playful. It looks like that chote dana falude ka, more like what sabza is, which is basil seeds, tulsi ke beej. Very similar looking. They kind of puff up. They give a lot of nutrition. They give a lot of fiber, and they naturally curb your hunger. So somebody who was planning to kind of start reducing, because हमारा सिर्फ COVID-19 में undernutrition is not the only problem. कि कोई कोविड से सफर हुआ, जो कोविड से बिल्कुल सफर नहीं हो, वो भी he has gained a lot of weight, and gaining weight is the biggest disease I feel, क्योंकि that complicates everything in your system. So we need to address undernutrition, whereas we also need to address overnutrition, because ये दोनों चीजें चल रही है side by side. घर पे जो बैठा है, जो कोविड से बच गया thankfully, वो मोटापे से possibly deal कर रहा है, because everybody is just sitting and eating. So I think chia seeds और सब्जा और तुलसी के बीज जो होते हैं पानी में भिगोने होते हैं 20 मिनट 25 मिनट, they bloom, they soak up a lot of water, and once you consume it, it naturally curbs your hunger. Up you start eating less, plus they give you nutrition. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो empty calories हैं.
So, Mr. Arora, you've been dealing with a lot of communities, and Nara works in a lot of rural communities in Gujarat. And you also have a very important project running there called Project Tushti. Could you tell us about that? How you've been looking at nutrition care kits and working on nutrition for these communities?
Part of our work that we do with the communities, we are highly focused in Gujarat. And I think I can relate to a lot of things that were spoken about earlier by my previous speakers. Yes, there is a lot of traditional knowledge that one finds in the rural areas, which I think as we grow in urban areas, having stayed in Mumbai and Delhi, both the places having a very urbanized experience, sometimes those traditional knowledge looks very frivolous is a wrong word, but that's how it appears to us. The fact of life is that there is a lot of depth and a lot of profundity in that information and that knowledge. And I think the reason why we thought of looking at nutrition as one of the key areas of intervention in that area. So Dwarka is the place where we are. Devbhoomi Dwarka is the name of the district. While it is the Nagari of the Lord Krishna, it is in the bottom quartile when it comes to nutrition indicators in the country. And you look at any parameter, you will find it in the bottom nutrition, not bottom quartile. Now, there is a paradox over here because Gujarat per se is a comparatively much more wealthier state. So one really wonders that if there is wealth available, if there is money with the people, if there is affordability with the people, and why are we really struggling on something like nutrition? So I think, as Chef rightly said, every food is good. It's more how you consume it and the habit that you have. So the habit, typically what we found in the very initial rapid survey was that there is a habit of snacking. Now, I don't say snacking is bad, but snacking has become bad because the rural communities are now transitioning from good rural communities to bad urban communities like us, which are more snacking chips and things like that. So that was one significant reason that we found, and it was quite surprising for us. So then if you teach a community which is wanting to become modern by eating chips, and you start telling them, no, your own traditional foods are good and you must go back to your roots. I can tell you from personal experience, it can be very challenging. It is somehow related to modernity, and I don't know why. So what we essentially did is that we took around ecosystem-based approach, because there are farming communities around us as well. So we did two things. One, we had a project which is purely on agriculture, again with two strands. One, obviously generating additional incomes from agriculture, but at the same time, one strand looking at the nutritional dimension of it. Now, kitchen gardens, nutrition gardens, one may give any names, but that was one key initiative that we took, and we worked with almost 15,000 farmers in the last few years. We ensured that there are kitchen gardens available in every household, every school backyard, every farm, sufficient for their own consumption. Now, you can, again, seasons vary, so you have to give different kinds of seeds at different point in times, but largely relying on the traditional knowledge of what is already there and what people know. But that is only one strand of the overall large gamut of things that we look at, as again was spoken by my far more knowledgeable previous speakers. Food is generally insufficient because of the limitations of the way we cook and the way we have our food. So in that sense, a focused approach on enhancing nutrition by introducing supplements is not something that we did, but high nutrition foods. So very small things like making recipe books were there, small videos on how to make good recipes. Not my forte. I am only a good eater, but those are things that we really picked up. I think the largest part or the largest input was, I would say, pushing the community into the mode of unlearning of seeing eating and snacking with modernity and good food. So that unlearning of what was thought as, oh, I am now becoming more modern, that interrelationship, that push was probably the most difficult part for us. It took us a lot of time. I can't say that we are there, because Devbhoomi Dwarka still remains among the bottom quartile. It is still 5 to 6 years away from where we can say that safely it is among the top quartile. We are still far away from that. But largely, it's an integrated approach on nutrition on one side, agri and income on the other side, and then piecing the two together. So that's what we've been essentially doing.
Thank you everyone for sharing the best practices and supporting the Suposhit Bharat campaign. It's been a pleasure to have you on this panel with us.